Hey guys, Zomb Phox here, and today it is time to do another channel interview. I know it's been a few months since the last one, but the guests keep getting bigger and better, as today we are here with Michael Del Negro, known as both XFL Analyst and UFL Analyst. Welcome to the channel, Michael.
Yep, thank you. Appreciate you for having me.
Well, I got to start by asking the basic question I ask everybody in this whole field of spring football, and that is, what got you into spring football?
So I've always loved the concept of just like backups getting an opportunity. And, I was bored one day. I was on the school bus. I was in eighth grade, just scrolling through Instagram and all that. And I saw a post, about this new league called the Alliance of American Football. And it was right up my alley, backups, free agents, getting that opportunity and that chance to showcase their talent and, potentially get back into the NFL. And I always wanted to start an Instagram page for football. I mean, I loved football, ever since I was 4 years old. Grew up a Patriots fan, always watched Tom Brady. So never wanted to really make a Patriots Instagram just because of the level of competition there. But I always wanted to do something. So I knew, right when I saw the AAF start back up, this was something that I wanted to do. And, you know, as the player signings kept going and there was a quarterback draft, I just think, the build up to kickoff, that's really what got me into spring football and, got me to where I am today.
Yeah, I know I've said it a few times. I personally think the AAF was my favorite spring football league. I just loved the aura of that league, the jerseys, the color schemes, how it was. I thought it was a great league. It really is a shame how it went down.
Yeah, I even made a post today about the rise and the fall of the AAF. It was just in theory, it was such a great league. The uniforms, the teams, they did a great job with that, but obviously how it was ran was not professionally done. It was not done right. And Charlie Ebersol did not have any money. So it's very unfortunate, how rushed that league was.
It definitely is a shame. I know you kind of talked a little bit about it, but aside from, so what really made you start your Instagram account for AAF, which has now gone on to the XFL, USFL, XFL, now the UFL?
Well, with the when I started with the AAF, I didn't think it was going to take off the way it did. So my goal was just, provide content. There was nobody there at the time who had, coverage on the AAF. So, I just wanted to be that person to provide some sort of coverage. When the Memphis Express started following me, I thought that was it. That was peak. And then Zach Stacy on the Express started following me, and I thought that was really peak. And that was going to be, that I would have a couple players following me and all of that. So I never thought it would grow to where it is today with the UFL and all that. But, I think just continuing to grind out and seeing the support and seeing all the follows and all the likes, continuing to rise day by day, week by week, I think really that's what motivated me to start it to where I am today and just keep going.
Because I mean, at the moment, not counting any official account, you are the like highest grossing account, right? You have like the most followers of any like spring football content creator right now.
Yes, I think all across the board, that includes TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter, I have the most following.
That is pretty impressive. So, when was the moment that in this world of spring football did you really realize that you made it as one of those guys of spring football?
Not really the AAF. I didn't really think I made it because at that time I wasn't really talking with a ton of players and all that. I was sort of just like posting news and I really just wanted to post news and not do anything else. The 2020 XFL, same thing. I was somewhat talking with the players then, but obviously I wasn't as big as I was now. So I would say I realized that I really made it, I think, at the end of the 2023 XFL season. Because I somewhat covered the USFL as well, but I wasn't into it as much as, the 2020 XFL. So I waited a little bit to start back up my coverage. And I think the end of the 2023 season is when I started to realize like I really made it when I posted my thank you post and just the amount of players and followers that just started messaging me and telling me how much, my page means and helps them out a lot. And then, some guys would say I've been following you since the AAF or the 2020 XFL. So I think, waking up to just hundreds of messages and comments, that's really where I think I truly realized I made it.
That is pretty insane. Now that does also kind of lead to the fourth question. You don't have to name any specific names, but roughly how many connections, whether it be UFL, college football, or the NFL, do you think you have right now?
Thousands. I like, which is pretty insane to even say that or talk about that, but thousands. I mean, I talk to players and agents every single day, whether they're in the UFL, some in the NFL, college football, majority free agents, arena football, but it really is in the thousands at this point. I mean, there's players always looking for opportunities, and my page is a main source to, give exposure to players that really need it, that, don't have a platform to show that exposure. So I think over the years, there's definitely been a lot of players that have been. It's been great to see their career grow. So like Cavante Turpin with New Jersey Generals, he reached out on my page, looking for exposure right before he signed with the Generals. Josh Butler, who's currently on the Dallas Cowboys, that's another one who needed help getting into the spring league. Chris Blair, who's currently on the Atlanta Falcons, same thing. He was looking for exposure right before the XFL draft, and then the countless of UFL players, and then former XFL and USFL players just over the years. It's been great, and it's never thought I would be, having this many connections with these agents and players, like ever. And I know it's just going to continue to grow. Like by the time we do this interview, I guarantee you there'll be at least five players, new players, that will be messaging me asking for help or exposure. So we've been ringing off the clock right now, right? With all these players.
Could you imagine talking to yourself back in like late 2018 saying that you would essentially have a direct impact in players signing, not with spring football, but with the NFL, like guys like Turpin and Blair? Could you imagine telling yourself that?
I think about that more often than you think, just like, my dream of, wanting to be this football reporter. And, I always look back to, my younger self and thinking about, like, 10 years ago that I would look up to guys like Cody Latimer, Martavis Bryant, and Marquette King and all that, and Josh Gordon. And I think I look at today and, how my 10-year-old self, or, my 13-year-old self back in 2018, a reaction to, Marquette King's going to recognize you at a game, and you're going to be talking daily to players that you grew up watching, like Martavis Bryant and Cody Latimer. And that's just it's a surreal feeling and a surreal moment. And just thinking about how proud my younger self would be with everything I've done so far.
I mean, it really is crazy. I mean, I know you've talked about in your post, but I mean, like, you're not an old guy. I mean, you're young, and the fact that you've been doing some of this stuff since before you could even drink is just insane.
Yeah, I still can't drink, so
And yet here you are. You're one of, if not the most important non-official figure in all of spring football. I mean, you're right up there with, I mean, I would say you're probably above pretty much everybody else in terms of overall spring football.
yeah, it's crazy to think about. It's definitely surreal that, I'm not even 21 yet, and I've been doing this since I was 13. But we're getting older, we're getting up there. Each year we go up is less and less impressive, so
Hey, but it still is impressive. Now, I gotta ask, now, I wouldn't be shocked because of how much you do, but is there a reason that you haven't ever made any sort of like videos or podcasts or anything like a lot of these other guys like Larson, how he does the around football? Is there like a reason that, aside from just time that you haven't done any of those?
it really is just time. If I had t all the time in the world, I would definitely be making a podcast or a YouTube channel or all that. But it really just comes down to time. And, it's just me. It's a one-man show with how I run my page and all that. So it's day in and day out content. There's some nights I don't sleep because I'm hammering out content and, trying to prep and prepare for what I need to do the next day. Um, so it really does just come down to time. I do occasionally go live on Instagram. When I do have time, I feel like that is the easiest setup for me. Set up the camera and go live. So, and for me, that's just the easiest way. I slowed down as the season started coming to an end, but anytime I want to go live or talk football, I mean, luckily Instagram's got gives me that, the option to go live when I want to. But, will I rule out a podcast in the future? I'm not going to, but right now with just time,
Hmm.
definitely not something that's on the top of my priority list.
Yeah, I mean, plus, I mean, hell, if you were thinking about doing one for the season, you still got, what, 7 months before the season starts again, so you got a lot of time to prepare if you decide to do that.
Oh yeah, and I always say that the UFL season ends, but for me the season never ends. The off-season content's just starting to, ease up a bit, and we could have news with potential expansion soon, and UFL showcases coming back up and more NFL signings. So, it's just ramping up for me now.
And we're just a few weeks away from the NFL preseason starting. Got to keep up with all the UFL players that are playing in it.
Yep. Yep, it's
So,
never ending for me.
I I gotta ask, do you have a main goal in sports media right now?
My main goal, really, I would love to be a GM. I have experience doing a lot of things, social media, graphic design, but I would love to be a GM. Um, I mean, I would already say that my dream of being a reporter is already accomplished, so we can go farther than that. Um, I would love to be a GM just because the amount of players I've talked to, like I said, I've talked to thousands of players over the last couple of years. I've had the opportunity to watch a lot of film and evaluate these guys and see, some of these hidden gems, who's good, who's not, and all that. And I would just love to be the guy to, you know, watch all the film, make the decisions, who's on the team, who's not on the team, all of that. So I would love to be a GM, a scout of, you know, something like that one day. That I feel like that will be the overall end goal.
I mean, I think definitely could happen. I mean, is you already got the connections to a bunch of players, and I mean that's already a big step right there. I mean, who's to say in like 4 years you're not a GM of an arena team or something like that? I mean, I could see it.
Yeah, I mean, I accomplished this much already, and I'm not 20 yet, so we'll see what happens the next 10 years and see where we go from there.
Yeah, you got a pretty damn good head start right now if you want to be a GM.
Oh yeah.
Now, these are the starting a couple of member questions. This one was from Trevor7166. What factors do you anticipate are leading to the ticket sale growth in places like Michigan and San Antonio, despite mixed performances, compared to the ticket decline of other proven record teams like a Birmingham or like an Arlington?
So with San Antonio, I'm always going to say that their attendance is down because you look at, the AAF in 2019 with the San Antonio Commanders, they always got 25,000 people at those games. And now you get between 10 to 15,000, which is still really good, but I think in San Antonio they're engaging with the community a lot more than other cities. Michigan, on the other hand, Michigan's high. I mean, they have a full marketing staff, and as you can see, they had the Jake Bates bobblehead night. That drew I think, their highest attended game in modern day history with over 15,000. I think it was around that number. So I think Michigan having a whole marketing staff, that's something that not every UFL team has. I think they are the only one, and I think it just comes down to that staff and then what San Antonio's doing with community engagement. So I think those are two things you see from those two teams that you don't really see from a lot of other teams. Like I will say, for example, I was in DC for the game versus the Renegades week 8. Great experience, but when I was walking around DC probably for 4 days straight, I went to the Smithsonian, I walked around for 4 straight days. I only saw one advertisement that the Defenders were playing that week. And if that's in a city where, they're drawing 15,000 to 20,000 a game, just imagine a city like Houston, where they're and Memphis, where they're barely drawing any fans. What's the promotion like there? So, it definitely makes you wonder, you know, how, how much community engagement there really is.
Yeah, I mean, especially DC. I mean, that's like an actually like succeeding market in terms of attendance, but have that few advertisement. Because like Michigan, I mean, they had like the whole draft thing where they had the whole like tent set up during the draft, the Jake Bates phenomenon. I mean, it is pretty impressive what they've done, and yeah, definitely it's a shame how Memphis and Houston are doing because those not great numbers.
Yeah, it's not looking good.
Especially Houston, because I know Ace has talked about it a lot, but I mean, everybody blamed the Rice Stadium for why the attendance was so bad, and then they go back to TDECU, and then the attendance gets worse. I mean, not a good look.
I think it comes down to the players. I mean, if you look at the XFL in 2020, they had to open up the second tier because of how great they were doing. And they had PJ Walker, Cam Phillips, and James Butler. And then you look at 2023, you had Wade Phillips, so you had something to get excited about. And the attendance there was actually pretty good still. But
Hmm.
now if you're a fan, you just saw two great teams play back to back, and now it's, yeah, we're gonna get this 4-6 team from the Gamblers. No more Wade Phillips. We got this kind of crappy coach in CJ Johnson, and we don't have a quarterback. That doesn't really get the Houston fans excited, as well, especially since they're all new players and in a team that wasn't really succeeding that much. So, and as you can see, the Gamblers, I'm going to call them the Gamblers for now, so we don't get them mixed
Hmm.
up. So when the Gamblers came and you saw they finished 1-9, how's that going to motivate you to come back the next season as a season ticket holder, check out the game, especially with some of those ticket prices as well? Like no one's going to want to pay
Yeah.
$70 to watch the Roughnecks get blown out by 40 points with a bunch of players you don't know. And I
Yeah, I think
feel
a
like
lot
that,
of people. I've seen a lot of people use the argument saying that players, oh, player overhaul every year. And I don't really get that argument because every team brings back like almost half their roster. So I think those people that were using that as an excuse, like that was such a lame excuse. Like not having those 2023 XFL Roughnecks on that roster was like definitely a massive problem for that
yeah.
market.
And I think the main factor was Wade Phillips as well. Like Wade Phillips would
Hmm.
get you excited. And I think, with bringing back the players, every team brings back players every single year. But I just think we brought back a bunch of guys from this 1-9 team. Like, and we have that same head coach from last year where we went 1-9. So I feel like it was hard to get excited for the Roughnecks.
How Curtis Johnson pulled two 5-5 records out of his hat, I have no idea.
Yeah, I mean, fair
Well,
play to
actually, I
them
do.
this
He
year.
beat two teams that were resting their starters because they were in the playoffs.
Yeah, but fair play to them. They did a lot better than I thought
True.
they were going to do this year. So, but it definitely puts the league in an awkward position because now it's like, well, CJ Johnson, on paper did good. Do you want to keep him another year? So I guess those will be the questions they'll be talking about the next couple of weeks, whether or not
Well,
they
I've,
want to do something.
I've heard a couple people tell me it this way. He kind of lucked into that record because Jalen McClendon ended up being clearly the best quarterback on the roster, yet he was quarterback three on their roster and doesn't look good on the coach if your best QB is your third string quarterback.
Oh no, not at all.
And I mean, Jalen McClendon, everybody acts like he never showed any talent. He was so good with the Vipers despite being on that Vipers team.
Yeah,
Now, this
McClendon,
isn't.
he's a great
Hmm.
veteran. He's a great veteran quarterback to have, and I
Hmm.
think in a team like Houston, that's where he excels. And I think if he comes back next year, he's going to excel as well. Nolan Henderson in that quarterback room, I feel like he's a great quarterback too as well. So I think those two should definitely come back. You figured that
For
out.
sure.
And Anthony Brown can walk. I mean, he did not look good. He didn't show any sort of life with them. Maybe
He really
potentially
did.
find the new young quarterback three to maybe develop and, get people excited for.
Really is shocking how rough he looked. But here's the second question from our channel members is from G-Man. Is the UFL in any sort of danger, or is there enough viewership to keep the league going until it starts to grow more?
So I'm not Russ Brandon, so I can't say they're in danger or not. But Russ Brandon did say, viewership is not an issue. They're happy with the numbers that they got, right around they used to shoot for 1 million. They're a little bit less than 1 million. It was also a very weird year with the times and the networks. I don't think they're in danger with the viewership. What I will say is, attendance. Attendance, I feel like, is the main factor. And if the UFL is in danger, it's going to be because of the attendance or the interest, in the stadiums. But viewership, you got the backing of ESPN and Fox, so I don't think the viewership or those TV partners are gonna put the league in danger at all.
Especially since it's not like they're really paying for, broadcasting rights.
Yeah, exactly.
Because I think a lot of people forget about that because I know there was like those reports and rumors that Disney may have like a teeny ownership stake, but like for Fox, I mean they own the league, so they're not paying any sort of broadcasting rights. So all the money they're getting from ads are just money from ads, and they're not paying off the broadcasting rights.
Yeah, and that's a huge factor you gotta remember and compare it to, other leagues who aren't owned by, these TV
hmm
partners. Because the reason why Fox brought back the USFL because they were doing so well with the 2020 XFL. They were trying to buy the 2020 XFL out of bankruptcy before they launched the USFL. So I think that's definitely an advantage that a lot of people don't realize is, these TV partners owning the league. It's definitely a huge factor.
Like I see people say the Friday night football numbers weren't as good as they were hoping, which I also thought they were going to be better, but as I've also said, the whole point of it was just to fill the Friday night SmackDown void. So you just plopped a game in there, and it's not like all it did was help your network out. You don't have to pay for something else there, and you still got sports on Friday.
I don't mind the Friday night. I don't mind the Friday night games. I think the problem was, you had at least for me anyway, who,
hmm
if you're an avid fan, so you take me for example, I like the Friday night games, but as soon as I'd go to sleep and wake up, it's like, there's another game already. I feel like, you look at the NFL, you have Thursday night football, and then you have a couple day break, and then it's Sunday, 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 Sunday night football, and then Monday night football. I feel like if the UFL wants to, do the Friday night lights, you got to push back those Saturday games. You can't have an 8 p.m. Eastern time game, and then the next morning you have a 12 o'clock game. That's like you got to space it out a little bit. And I feel like the 2023 XFL format with that, I feel like they had it figured out pretty well. It's like most of the games on Saturday were pushed back to like 4 o'clock or 8 o'clock. And if you want to do the Friday night lights, I feel like that's the way to go. Friday night game, Saturday night game, and maybe two Sunday games, you can mix that around. But
hmm
I think they got to space it out a little bit.
I definitely feel that. I streamed two play-by-plays every week, and one of them was on Friday. And when I had this Saturday morning game, it was like, man, I'm gonna get like no sleep tonight. Now,
Exactly. And even with me, so like, I'm going through my game day routine with posting the final scores and all that. And like literally as soon as I'm done, it's like, oh, there's another one. Literally the next morning. And I feel like this was the first year where I was really like that, where I'm like, geez, like there were a couple games where I'm like, I really don't want to watch this right now. Like I need to catch up. So, like, but that's something they got to figure out, and that's what year two of the UFL, that's what, they got to figure it out for year three. Each year they do this, they're going to figure it
mhm.
out more and more. So we'll see what happens next year.
Now, the last main question I have is what do you think the biggest concern is for the UFL after the 2025 season?
Um, like I mentioned before, I think definitely attendance, but something we haven't addressed yet is definitely, I think, bigger names in the league. Um, you look at the AAF in 2019, who's the two biggest names that they got? Trent Richardson and Johnny Manziel. XFL in 2020, they had, luckily PJ Walker made it very exciting, but they
Yeah.
drafted Connor Cook because he was, freshly out of the Raiders playoff quarterback. XFL in 23, you had AJ McCarron, um, Corey Coleman in the USFL, Reuben Foster. I feel like now all you have is Marquette King. You don't have that Josh Gordon or Martavis Bryant right now. You need DC's good with it. DC's got DeAndre Baker, definitely
hmm
in like, former first round pick. I think they definitely got to get these guys who are as much as I love players getting a chance, missed NFL opportunities, never made the NFL. As much as I love those
hmm
players getting a chance, you need some of those names to play because if you don't have some of those names, you need You need to give people a reason to watch. And if someone, like Johnny Manziel's playing, of course you're going to tune in. Why? Because it's Johnny football. I guess you had that similar with Max Duggan as well with the Battle Hawks, but
Yeah.
Max Duggan's not that big of a name. I feel like you definitely got to target some of these bigger name quarterbacks. Like they got Kellen Mond. That was pretty good. I think that was also another reason why San Antonio, did a little bit better because you have a local guy. You have a local guy in Texas who played there in college. Trace McSorley was a name that the UFL was trying to get. And if you put Trace McSorley, you know, obviously in a place like DC, close to Penn State, they're gonna know who he is. And again, it's gonna give people to watch. Why? Because Trace McSorley's got that song. Same with Ben DiNucci as well. It gave people a reason to watch Ben DiNucci throw to Josh Gordon. And I feel like this year you kind of lost that swagger, even with AJ McCarron leaving. You lost some of that swagger. And I feel like they definitely need to reestablish themselves with bigger names. If you get that, you're going to get people to watch and put them in familiar markets.
Yeah, especially with a lot of the bigger names, like once they've already returned, like a Breland Speaks, a Hakeem Butler, you kind of lose a bit of that luster because you already had the oh, I can't believe he's in the league. Now it's just he's a Panther or he's a Battlehawk. So I definitely see where that is. I know that's a thing I've heard some people say, but hopefully with the pay raise increase, hopefully it gets at least couple of bigger names into the league. That'd be really nice to see.
Even with Houston, they brought in Damon Arnett. Damon Arnett had his problems off the field, but again, if it was a bigger market and the fans were actually engaged, it would be this guy's got his issues, but let's see if he can play still. Maybe this could be a high risk, high reward type player, and luckily it worked out for them. But with the market they were in, the fans just weren't interested. So definitely tough. I think even in a market like St. Louis, where attendance dropped a little bit, they got to get a quarterback, and they got to get a quarterback that's known.
Yeah,
A
that's
lot
for
of
sure.
St. Louis fans messaged me saying like they didn't really have an interest in the team this year because of the way that they handled the AJ McCarron situation. McCarron brought that swagger to that St. Louis team. They didn't have that this year with Duggan, so I think you definitely need to target a quarterback that's known.
Yeah, and the whole reason of Beck getting rid of him because he wanted a dual threat quarterback, and then that backfired on him because coincidentally, the guy that wasn't a dual threat quarterback, Brandon Silvers, ended up being the best QB on their roster. Definitely wasn't great. And I know I've seen a lot of people also complain about that. Now, do you have anything else you would like to share before we end this interview?
No, I think I talked about myself a lot. And I talked about all the issues. I think the UFL needs to figure out these next years, but also a lot of good. So I think I've pretty much covered everything I want to cover.
Once again, I want to thank you for joining and being on this interview. I would assume this is one of your first times being interviewed.
Um, yeah, I would say this is maybe like my fifth or sixth. Again, it's just the time, I don't have time to, be interviewed by a lot of people. So luckily this one worked out. So yeah.
Yeah, it was definitely cool having you. And for those of you who enjoyed this video, make sure to subscribe to the channel and hit the bell so you're notified when I upload any video. Remember, even during the off season, still uploading at least 2 videos a week. Like we mentioned earlier, the NFL preseason is coming up. Gonna have a lot of videos about the players from the UFL playing in the preseason. And as always, guys, have a great night.